I've always been a pothead, although I've quit just recently. I was a drinker in my teens and had even become a drunk by the age of 18. My friends told me that I became someone else when I drank, and that's when I quit. I never considered taking LSD until I met Jay, but I cussed him out when he came to me saying that he wanted to try this drug for the first time. I told him he was crazy, and that was some hardcore stuff. I always thought of it as a punk rocker's drug, because when I thought of acid, I thought of leather, spiked mohawks, chains, and piercings. I thought Jay was going to take acid and ruin his life. So I quickly stepped in and rushed to the library to do some research on this drug so that I could rush back and tell Jay about all of the horrible things that it was capable of. I found out about the dangers, but also about the government's use of LSD on test subjects as a truth serum. And I found the piece of information that made me want to try it. And that is, a lot of people reported having spiritual experiences. So I pondered truth and spiritual experiences. I want some too, because I've been waiting a long time for my spiritual experience. I was always jealous of my friends who had imaginary friends, because I felt that that was really a spiritual connection and therefore confirmation of God. I felt the same way about the people who caught the Holy Ghost in those sanctified Southern Baptist churches I attended in my youth. So, seeking truth and my spiritual experience, I dropped about a year after I decided that I was going to. After my out-of-body experience and the visit from Morrison, the first thing that came to my mind was, why me? I really knew little to nothing about rock and roll at that time. I'm Black and from Detroit. My musical upbringing was, of course, gospel, but mainly hip-hop and R&B, with some pop. The only rock and roll that I remember being exposed to is Queen, and that's because our sports teams used a lot of their music as theme songs. Another one, Bites the Dust, was used by the Detroit Lions, and it was a banging song. I had just been introduced to the music of The Doors about a year prior to this experience. And I wasn't even a fan, just a casual listener. I mean, I did like the fact that they had an anti-war song, and that Morrison would yell, "Jesus save us," in the middle of a rock and roll concert. That was refreshing, to say the least. It was also shocking because when I thought of rock music, I thought it was a lot of hardcore, headbanging, heavy metal music. At the job where I met Jay, he would bring his headphones and let me listen to his hip-hop mixtapes. He and his brother made some great tapes with artists like the Fugees, Mos Def, and Talib Kweli, Keith Murray, Wu-Tang, The Roots, Common, Redman, Ice-T, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, and the list goes on. Just quality hip-hop. Now, sprinkled in the midst of these dope hip-hop tracks were sometimes a Doors song. One was Break On Through. I liked it right away because they used the same rhythm that was used in one of my favorite movies from my youth, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The song was called Tequila. The track was also used in a rap song called Do the Pee-wee Herman. I believe that was by Joski Love, and we were all doing Pee-wee's dance. Other songs that made it to the tapes were Riders on the Storm and 5 to 1, both also bangers and were sampled in hip-hop. So, I knew a few Doors songs and had seen the Doors movie directed by Oliver Stone a couple times. The only reason I watched it twice is because I was tired one day and didn't leave the living room when Jay's nephew's mother, Sheila, put it on. She watched it every day. Every day. She really liked the Doors, especially Jim. Why didn't he come through her? Or any other fan for that matter? From what I've read, there are quite a few hardcore fans, and new ones being made every college semester. That's where Jay learned about the Doors. Like I said, I was just a casual listener, and I actually thought that Morrison was a loud and obnoxious a-hole after watching Oliver Stone's movie. So yeah, why me? A black girl that's hip-hop from Detroit. This prompted my research to find out about this man. My experience was on December 24th, 1998. So, a few days after Christmas, I went to the library and picked up a bio on Morrison and a book on spirit possession. I picked up the latter because during my trip, Jay told me that I was acting as if I were possessed by the ghost of Jim Morrison. I was relieved when I found that what occurred that night was not possession, but an out-of-body experience. I concluded this after reading The Infinite Boundary by D. Scott Rogo. I could not relate to his descriptions of possession, but what happened to me was perfectly described in the out-of-body experience section. I searched the internet and picked up more books on Morrison. After analyzing some of his poetry, spoken and song lyrics, I found that Morrison wrote about reincarnation, and he referenced Eastern religious traditions like Buddhism and Hinduism